Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support. Hey everyone, Rich here from Eat Your Content. I know some of you are anxiously awaiting recaps of The Bear Season 3, and I promise they're coming soon. In the meantime, I thought I'd replay my interview with Chef Curtis Duffy and Michael Muser, whose 2-star Michelin restaurant Ever in Chicago was featured prominently in Season 2, Episodes 4 and 7, Honeydew and Forks. I talked with Chef Curtis and Michael about their partnership, background, opening Ever, and how they got involved in The Bear. So I hope you enjoy it, and remember to like, follow, and subscribe to Eat Your Content wherever you get your podcasts so you know when those Season 3 recaps will drop. Enjoy.
We try to create something that's very classic in terms of flavor profile, but in a unique way. So the Parmesan is turned into a crispy shell that is something that you will break through, but it's covered in truffles, so you don't really see it. You're forced to kind of dig and explore. With most of our dishes, I try to pinpoint 3 or 4 ingredients and leave it at that. A rule of thumb for me is kind of let them explore on their own with the dishes. If they want more information, they're going to ask. Just say black truffle and risotto and walk away. Because you see all kinds of stuff. You see them try to lift up what's underneath it. What are they doing? There's no right or wrong way of eating that dish. It's just, as long as you're having fun and enjoying it, that's all that matters.
Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. My name is Rich Herrera. Thank you for joining me on this little pod. You have a lot of pods to choose from, but you chose mine, so I appreciate your time. A couple of programming reminders. All of our episodes are archived, so make sure you follow our podcast on the podcast player of your choice. Hit that follow and subscribe button so you'll be notified of when new episodes drop. I am very excited today to have a couple of culinary powerhouses in the pod with me today, Chef Curtis Duffy and Michael Muser of Ever. They're both Michelin-starred, award-winning restaurateurs and chefs at places like Avenues, Grace, and Ever in Chicago, Illinois. They've been partners for longer than most marriages, I think. So you guys have been together for a long, long time. And their second restaurant after Avenues, Grace, was documented for Grace in the 2015 film documentary. Chef Duffy, Michael Muser, welcome to the pod. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's an honor.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the reason why you guys came on my radar is your recent restaurant was highlighted in The Bear, which has been a huge hit across FX, and millions of people have been exposed to your restaurant. How has that been since you've seen the episode? I'm sure that it was featured on. How have things been going?
It's been outstanding. From the minute that they reached out to us and asked to see the space, they showed up and we showed them around, and they right away, we hadn't seen the script yet, so I didn't know what storyline they had. I didn't know what their needs were. But turns out once we eventually saw the script and got to read it, it made a lot of sense. I'm like, oh, this is perfect for you. You need a place that is driven by excellence and has all of the pieces, dining room, kitchen, everything that is built to achieve greatness and to be one of those kind of like epic dining spots. So it worked out well for them because it definitely fit the needs of the script that they had written, and working with them was awesome. And it's not always that way, right? I've lent the dining room out at Grace once or twice to some TV crews, and there's a lot of people involved in those processes, and there's a lot of equipment getting taken in and out of the room. And especially at Ever's dining room is just kind of like coated in material. The walls are just not walls. There's Venetian plaster everywhere. There's not just glass, but the glass is always paned and covered by other things. And then there's millwork that sits in front of that. And all of that kind of comes cascading out of a custom fabricated acoustic paneled ceiling. And all of this costs $1 bazillion for us to go get. And so I wasn't excited about loaning that to potential damage. But lucky for us, they were consummate professionals. The team was awesome from the Bear. and they cared for the space as if it was their own. And I appreciated it every step of the way. And so as an owner, that's what really makes it nice for you, is that you can trust your partner and that, they'll take care of the space. And it lent itself well to the script. So it really worked out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to jump back to the bear later in the pod, but I kind of want to start at the beginning. So I'm talking a little bit about your background and how you guys kind of got started in the restaurant industry. Chef Duffy, your background is well documented. Kevin Pang's wonderful article in the Chicago Tribune a few years back, and then of course the documentary For Grace. To say you had a troubled background would be a massive understatement. But what is it about the kitchen? And you talked about Ruth Snyder and her home ec class kind of really saving your life. What is it about finding peace in the kitchen? I heard a lot of stories from chefs just like you that are in that same similar situation, that life outside the kitchen was a little bit chaotic, but in the kitchen was peace and joy. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Well, I think when you find something that you love to do, it becomes your entire life being. And for me, I was fortunate enough to find the kitchen and find that I really enjoyed being in that environment. And even though that the kitchen is so notorious for the misfit people just fitting in, and everybody just from all over walks of life, and it just fit very well for me. And the idea of being able to take something, food being, and create something, and to watch the people's expressions when they eat something, and it really changed the way they're enjoying that moment or change a dining perspective throughout the evening, always excited me since I was very young. Even watching, something as simple as giving somebody a very well cooked cheeseburger, how much that changed the way they thought and bring a smile to their face was always something that I really enjoyed seeing. And I just fell in love with the world of food and wine, really.
That's awesome. Michael, your background, you mentioned or read in a couple of interviews, you held various roles in different restaurants, but you really gravitated towards sales, design, front of house aspect of it. So what is it about that section of the restaurant industry that drew you in?
Well, I think my life was very wine focused. I loved, I was like, you could only be a waiter. I was a waiter for a long time. And then you get old enough to a point where you're like, oh my God, am I gonna keep doing this? And then you realize you could be a sommelier, and a sommelier is like this fancy word. It backs everybody off. It's like, I'm not a waiter anymore. I'm a sommelier, which is essentially a walking bartender in the dining room. I did that for a long time, and when Curtis and I met, technically my job was wine director of the Peninsula Hotel, but along came Chef Duffy, who takes over this very beige box. It was hotels will often sometimes they'll just be like, well, it's a dining room / it's a banquet room / it's a conference room / it could be any one of these things. And that was kind of our dining room at Avenues. It was a dining room at nighttime, but during the daytime, you never really knew what it could be. And along comes Chef Curtis, and he takes this job of being the head chef, the chef de cuisine of this one little restaurant. And there's food that begs to be supported on the other side by everything. The food is so beautiful. It's so elegant. There's so much thought. I'm watching this guy make this stuff, and he's just placing every little piece right where he wants it to be. What are you going to do with that? Just hand it off in any way? No, the way it's taken, what it's put on, how it's walked through the dining room, what kind of table you put, all of the sudden, everything that comes after that moment, if it doesn't match the level of the food that's being put out, it's a fail. And that's a fun challenge. That's a really fun challenge. It begins with everyone in the room agreeing that there's an artist that is saying and doing things with food that is unique and epic, right? And if everyone agrees with that, then the game is on to create, after we left that restaurant, after we left the hotel side of it, the game is now, let's build a whole world that supports that food. a whole world. And that's a complicated thing to do. Waiters, back waiters, sommeliers, captains, expediters, the way you design the dining room, how much space in between the tables, the types of chairs, the types of tables, the stemware, the wine program, the wine pairings, on and on it goes. All for one single goal, to get everything else in the restaurant to match the level of the quality of the food coming out of the kitchen.
Yeah, that's so true. I've been to so many restaurants where the food was great, but the service didn't match and it felt incomplete. It didn't feel like a whole experience. So I love that you two meeting at the Peninsula together and realizing that you're kind of the yin to each other's yang, and it made for a really, really great partnership. So speaking of meeting at the Avenues and Peninsulas, was it love at first sight, or was it kind of had to grow on each other?
No, I mean, it worked out pretty quick. It works out pretty quick. I mean, the thing is, in anybody in the hospitality world that's worked in a hotel and worked in freestanding restaurants, hotels are like much bigger machines, right? And there's all these executive committee members. You got 100,000 bosses if you work in a hotel. Your boss always has 10 bosses, and what that does is it creates a lot of meetings and a lot of reports and a lot of this stuff. I promised Curtis in the very beginning, you just do this, you cook, and I'll deal with everything else. I'll keep everything else as far away from you as I possibly can. I will protect you from all of that garbage. And you just keep doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is amazing. So let's just, the goal was kind of like to get everyone to just leave him alone. And that sounds simple, but in a hotel setting, it's not, right? Because here comes the holiday brunch, and they're going to want this and that and the other, and you know what I mean? And you got to convince everybody that's not what we do.
Yeah. So I'm watching the documentary for Grace. You guys documented the challenges at Avenues, like short staff and not having enough space and cooking on what is essentially, a kitchen countertop when you really needed more space. So you guys decided to leave together and start Grace, right? To kind of fulfill those wishes and dreams that you both have of running that restaurant. I don't want to go too deep into Grace. I'm going to direct people. If you want to read about it, it's the Chicago Tribune by Kevin Pang. His article is really great. I'll link it in the description, or go rent the For Grace documentary on Vimeo. It's $5. I rented it. It was awesome. So going in depth there. But I think what's interesting is, did you feel that Grace, before everything that happened at the end, did you feel like Grace was going to be like your forever restaurant? You opened it up, you're like, this is it. My life's work is here, and this is going to be my forever restaurant.
Well, I think, that's the way we approached it in the beginning, because, we put everything we had into that restaurant, blood, sweat, and tears. It was everything about that restaurant. We talk about it quite often about, just the dedication that we had towards that restaurant. Had we known 5 years forward that we were going to be in that position, I think still to this day, we probably would have put the same amount of effort into it. I think anything great, you got to put 100% into it. So that was our goal. And I honestly didn't think that we were ever going to have to close that restaurant. But, we're sitting in a much better position than we were then, and a much better place, and happier and everything about it. But, we learned a great deal from it. We lost a great deal from it as well. And the important thing is that we were able to get back up and continue to push forward and to continue to pursue our dream of being great restaurateurs and being great for our community, our city, and worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, Grace was, and it's taken time, right? It takes time to be able to look back on big swaths of your existence and make peace and see them with clarity. Grace was an unbelievably special moment in our lives. We were younger a little bit, and not that we aren't today, because I think we're more hungry today than we've ever been. But back then we were feverishly hungry, and we lived in that restaurant every second of its life. And for sure, we thought that was our restaurant for forever. There was no I mean, you can't put that much effort into it and not have, like you said, if you watch the documentary, I think the reason why people react passionately to the documentary is because it is raw and it is very, very real. And we put everything we had into that thing, for sure. And the team that worked there, we were a family. I mean, we were bonded in a way that a lot of teams don't get to that level. And for sure, it crushed us to leave it, to let it go, and to walk away. That hurts. Nobody walks away from a 3-Michelin-starred restaurant with a smile on their face. Like, something is seriously wrong when that happens. Seriously wrong. To say we were not happy is like one of the biggest understatements. It was not a workable place. It was not. And we sought out counsel from every all-knowing restaurateur friend we had. And time again, the piece of advice they would hand over to us was simple: leave. You have to quit. And just like Chef said, we lost a lot there for sure. But the old adage, it ain't how you fall down, it's how you get up. I think now, looking back, I still think, we were just talking about it a week ago. We were traveling last week, and I'm like, can you believe we had to rebuild a whole nother one? When we were designing Ever and opening Ever, it was like deja vu every 5 minutes. Like, wow, man, we just did this like 5 or 6 years ago, But it also presented us with the opportunity to take what we had done at Grace, which most people that ate there, not most, a lot of people that ate there said that was the greatest dining experience they ever have in their lives. That was the best dining room that they've ever sat in their lives. We had to up that. We had to one up what we had already done. And what we had already done, many people had said to us, this might be the finest dining experience I've ever had in my life. And now we're going to look at everyone and go, yeah, but wait until you see this one. Kind of a challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. A couple of things I wanted to hit on what you're talking about there, Michael, was, from what I heard and seen in the document, what I've read, it was a very publicized split with you two and the real estate developer, very public spat. Chef, you walked out, and then the next day, everybody else walked out. And all of a sudden, obviously, there's no restaurant. First off, that's a badass move right there. I want to have a team. I have a day job apart from this podcast, and I want to be able to have a team that would follow me like that. That would just be like, you know what, our leader's gone, I'm walking out with him because this is toxic, and I don't want to be in here by myself without some support. Right. Tell me about that moment where, how did you feel when you leave? You let your team know you're going. You don't control what they do necessarily, but how did you feel when you found out that the rest of them followed you out? What was going through your mind at that point?
Let's rewind, 6 or 8 months prior to me walking out. I had already left the restaurant. I would say sometime in March, maybe April. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I had stepped away from the restaurant without being we publicly didn't announce it. And this whole time when I stepped away, we were trying to negotiate time and, time to purchase the restaurant back, trying to fix it, try to keep it moving, because we wanted everything in our power to keep this restaurant moving forward. We didn't want to let it go. So me stepping away from the restaurant, we felt, from a legal standpoint, we felt like maybe if I step away, this guy's going to see that it's just going to crumble without me. The thing we failed to do, and it was strategically, we didn't do it on purpose, was announce it publicly, because we tried to come to the table with this guy and we tried to convince him that, look, the moment Duffy is no longer there, this restaurant is no longer there. But he insisted on, he wanted to burn this thing to the ground. He insisted on, it's going to continue on without you. Look, it's been great for the last few months. You haven't been there. It's been fine. And, it's like, yeah, it's been fine because the public doesn't know. And my team is amazing there. And Michael was still there. And a handful of my other staff have been there since day one. They know what to do, of course. But the moment I announce, the moment the restaurant's going to no longer be existent. And so that's what happened. The day that we announced, I didn't say to my staff, leave. I don't expect you to leave. You do your own thing. When I announced, it was time to go. Everyone knew it. They were there to work for us. They weren't there to work for the other guy.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like two things. If we're going to sit here and talk about a story about a couple of guys who opened a restaurant with another guy and then it didn't work out and it all burned down in the end, we're 1 in 5 million stories. I can't count on both my hands the people I know, friends of mine in my life that have had way worse crashes, right? This is a tale as old as time. This what we're talking about. In our particular situation, you would be shocked to hear how we were at the table. Like, there were no secrets in terms of, we're leaving. You understand? We're leaving. And then the other side says, I don't care. And then we go, shit. All right, hold on a second. No, but we're really going to leave, because obviously we're attached. And not just a little bit attached. I mean, goodness, I can't remember the exact numbers, but at that time, Grace was like one of 9, 10, 11 three-Michelin-starred restaurants in the United States of America. It meant, when a restaurant receives 3 Michelin stars, it means something for the whole city. It's not just about us. It's not about the restaurant at that point. We live in Chicago, man. That's like a Stanley Cup. You don't take that lightly. It's an honor, and it's something that you carry around. So yeah, if it's not working out, which it wasn't working out with us big time, you do everything you can to work it out. And let me tell you, there was no working it out. And we tried everything. So to be specific, what we did was we sent about 11 emails. Sorry, our attorney sent about 11 emails, and it said goodbye. And we did that on the last round of them were sent on a Friday. And they said exactly that we were announcing on that Monday or Tuesday, whenever we announced, right? We could not legally speak to the team. So they did not know. They found out in the New York Times like everyone else found out. And then from what I understand, they got together, went into the joint, cleaned out their lockers, and left as a result. Did I think that was going to happen? I absolutely knew it was going to. I knew, because I knew this is our family. You remove Curtis, everyone would look at the other side of our situation and be like, are you that dumb? Like, are you really that stupid? You're going to let this guy leave? You're seriously going to, like, why would you, are you really going to ruin a thing like this, huh? And the answer from the other side was 100%, absolutely, I'll do it twice on Sundays. He can leave anytime he wants. When you're in a situation like that, brother, what are you going to, you know what I mean? What are you going to do? Right. Work another 16-hour day for this thing that you don't even own, this other person owns? And this other person is treating the artist like garbage with disrespect and discontent. It was not healthy. It was not healthy.
Just reading it, I dove into the Google black hole and started reading all the articles about it. And from what I read, it was really toxic. And the solidarity, all the articles had the same mention about the staff walking out quote unquote the next day after you left. And the solidarity really spoke to me. It spoke to me, and it gave me an insight about how you guys run a kitchen, how you guys run a restaurant, and that it is long hours. It's 16-hour days. In the documentary, Chef, you're shown getting up at 4 a.m. and then not going to bed until 2:00 the next morning. That's insane. So you're spending all these hours and these times with these people, and the solidarity that you built was really inspiring amidst the fire that was going on around you. But I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, and because of that, ever happened. And never would have happened if Grace didn't happen. So I have to say, I think it all worked out for the best. You look at it in hindsight, in the rearview mirror, and it's like, you know what, this was supposed to happen the way it did, because Ever is now our baby. no shady real estate developer being a part of it. This is ours. So
Right.
let's dive right into Ever, right? So you guys opened Ever and you opened it up in the summer of 2020. We're deep in the throes of a pandemic, of COVID. And I got to say, that was ballsy. Opening up in 2020. I mean, you had every, well, I don't want to say you had every right. Financially, I'm sure you couldn't say, you know what, let's wait until this thing ends, because you never know how long this thing was going to last back in 2020, right? So you open it up. It's one thing to open up a restaurant in 2020. It's another to open up a restaurant of that caliber, of being a Michelin star right off, trying to get a Michelin star right off the bat, knowing your pedigree and knowing your history of opening up that type of restaurant in 2020. That's different than opening up like a Applebee's or a Chili's or something like that. It's just
Right.
different. So what gave you guys the confidence of being able to open Ever in the midst of the world going to hell at the moment?
Well, I think, for us, we were already in mid-construction when pandemic started. So we didn't, like everyone else, we had no idea how long this thing was going to last. And we had to keep forging forward because every day it's just money. We're not open. We got to keep going. And I think we were about 5 or 6 months to open. No, actually,
Yeah.
I don't remember the timeline as to like how we were close to opening. Maybe 4 months we were close to opening. And the city came in and said, everything's closed down. And we looked at each other, what the hell are we going to do? And everybody kept coming to work, and we were slowly still building this restaurant of what it should be. And the timeline had to keep being pushed back. And, the city eventually came around and said, okay, we can open, the restaurants can reopen at 25% occupancy. And we looked at each other and said, look, these tables are already 6 feet apart. Just by design, we could have a full dining room at this point at 25% occupancy as long as we scheduled it at the right time. So we said, let's give it a shot. We just started hiring staff and training. We used that time to really hone in on training the staff and getting the restaurant to where we felt it should be before we opened the doors. And then we opened and were able to get 3 months underneath our belt at 25% occupancy, and then the city came back in and closed us back down. So we went from 0 to 100 to 100 to 0 in 3 months.
Yeah, during COVID. Sorry, go ahead.
We were kind of the perfect storm of all of it. We had already raised all of the money for the build. We had it all, and we signed the lease, and we were halfway through construction, and then COVID hit. The first COVID hit, but that didn't bother us because construction was an essential trade. And so we could continue building the restaurant. Now, it was not easy with the shutdowns and the closures and equipment and, everybody staying far apart from each other, the electricians over here and the plumbers over there and all of that. But when we had completed construction on the restaurant, that is exactly correct what Curtis just said. They had opened capacity up to a small portion, 25% of your occupancy, and we had the keys to a brand new restaurant. So we decided to go for it, and we ran for 90 days, and then they shut the whole thing down again. And we went down like everybody else went down the first time, and we got to feel that pain and the to-go food and the pickup stuff, and eventually a cheeseburger would come our way because we had to fight for survival during that time. It was horrible. We didn't qualify for any PPP because we weren't in business before the thing started. So we didn't have a track record of saying, look how much money we've lost because we were never a business to begin with. So we just had the loss of revenue that we were dealing with.
Wow.
And it got tough. It got tough. I think it is, it's weird how quickly we move on from such a thing, right? You rewind the clock a couple of years ago, and no one thought restaurants would actually ever be a thing ever again. We thought restaurants were gone, done, finished. And while everyone was fully checked into that mindset, we were building a fine dining restaurant. And I was online promoting it, saying, oh my God, look at this beautiful restaurant we're building. When really the general public was probably looking back at us going, are you stupid? Turn on the news. These things are done. So it's crazy that we're here.
Yeah, it's interesting. During COVID, there was a lot of doomsday sayers saying exactly what you were saying, and now we're in 2023, and it's like it never even happened. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how quick we are to get back to normal. I mean, and you mentioned having to pivot. So I could have swore you read my notes beforehand, but that was my next question. Is you guys actually started a ghost kitchen inside of Ever called Rev Burger, which is Ever backwards and Dream in French. Very clever. And you had to pivot like a lot of restaurants. And when I saw restaurants like Alinea doing takeout, I'm like, oh, this is serious. Like this is like seriously doing some things to some restaurants. But you guys did burgers out of a ghost kitchen. And I read an Eater article quoting you, Michael, that you were not a fan of having burger grease being splattered on your very impeccably designed kitchen and all that, and you were not happy about that, but you had to do what you had to do to survive, right? So was it kind of like, oh, okay, I don't like this, but I got to do it?
Yeah, there was moments where we would walk in the morning, and the restaurant had been serving burgers for a few weeks at that time, and we could smell it would smell of grease and fries and burgers, and at that point we said we have to either stop doing this, which would have been foolish because it was very successful, or we need to find another kitchen to do this in. And that's what we did. We found another location, happened to be right across the street from Ever, and then we started that moment and got the burger moment out of Ever. There was a moment where we were covering the entire line, the entire stove and the shelves and everything with aluminum foil before we started cooking. Just the amount of grease that wasn't designed to do that.
Yeah, I mean the stove in Ever, I'm not trying to be like all hoity-toity, but it's a custom fabricated Bonet. Like it's not a cheap piece of equipment, and it's all like everything is custom fabricated. Everything, it's all built specifically to do what we do, which is these really pretty 12-course tasting menu experiences. We don't use a lot of fire. There's not a lot of frying or grease or any of that stuff, right? It's just not there for that. I came in on like the third day of doing these burgers, and Curtis and the two cooks that we could actually have employed had covered the entire hotline in tinfoil, right? They just like wallpapered the whole back wall with tinfoil to try and protect it from what we were doing on it. I mean, I was not happy and really excited to see it leave that kitchen.
I got to imagine every flip of the burger, you just died a little inside.
Oh, terrible.
I got to tell you, though, we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yes.
And for me, it's like the pressure of cooking a burger versus the pressure of doing the food that I do every day. I mean, I was having a blast. And, we had a couple cooks. Ironically, one of them quit during that time. And he said the reason why he was quitting because I didn't move all the way across country to flip burgers. And I thought to myself, well, I'm standing right beside you flipping burgers. I have absolutely no problem doing it. It just shows you like that mentality is not going to get you anywhere. So
it was more Michael dying on the inside because his kitchen was.
Oh, totally.
Well, I was dying because I get the smell of and the grease was just driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I'm the first to admit, like, I don't think like restaurant people, I have PTSD about that whole. I was not good. I did not behave well. I didn't handle it very well. I was brokenhearted and depressed, and I don't do well when the financial strains are that hard. I mean, dude, there's no money. There's no money coming in, and day after day after day after day, and to see the dining room dark with no lights. We restaurant folk are pretty simple animals. Every day at 5:00, we have service. We have a service. People come and they see us and we welcome them. Chef cooks for them. We describe exciting food elements. I've been doing it so long, it's like built into us. Service. And suddenly, gone. Just deleted from our day. I couldn't recalibrate. It was horrible. But Curtis is right. At least when we were doing the burgers, we were busy. It felt good to be busy. It felt good to be like, oh my God, we're doing, we have something to do here.
So you actually did keep Rev Burger alive across the street at the other location until recently, just July 2022 is when you finally decided to shut down that concept. But the burger does live on in the after lounge, right? Because I was perusing your menu and I saw that the Rev Burger was in there. So for those that missed the chance to get a burger cooked by Chef Curtis Duffy there, you can head over to After and order it from the bar.
Yeah, I think it's actually better now than it was before because, a takeout versus something you have straight from the kitchen and you're sitting down and enjoying it. It's so much better that way than it was putting it in a bag into somebody's car and who knows where it ended up, 2 hours later with Grubhub or wherever.
Right.
No, thank you.
So let's move on to the Bear. So this is where, like I said earlier, where you guys came on my radar because I didn't know what restaurant this was because I was like, this is a beautiful restaurant. I hope this is real because I want to go. And I saw the chef come out doing the famous smudge speech when you watched the episode with Ever on it. And I said, I wonder if that's real. And then I Googled it right after the episode, come to find out it's real. You guys are running it. I said, I got to get you guys on the pod. So you talked a little bit about how you guys got in contact with, or how they got in contact with you and all that. But Ever wasn't the only restaurant or wasn't the only thing that was featured in the Bear. Your other concept After stood in for Copenhagen, right? Where Marcus learned how to make shiso gelée. So they used all of that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They used, they turned our After kitchen into the Copenhagen bakery, which was really interesting to see because, at this point, After's kitchen is it's not really noticeable in terms of it's not out there publicly. There's not a lot of shots of the internal kitchen. So it was weird to see us on the main TV with, as a bakery. And for most people, I don't think they would even know that was After's kitchen. I mean, some of the staff were like, that's our kitchen? Like, yeah, that's the kitchen because they did such a great job just
dressing it
up and putting things where they should be and look completely different than our kitchen.
Yeah, so when Richie walks in and he's walking down that dark cavernous hallway, which is by design. I was watching a YouTube video of you, Curtis Duffy, about designing Ever, and you designed it that way that it's kind of cold, right? And you walk in, but you're led through, and there's the eerie music playing, and Richie's kind of looking around. And I gotta admit, the first time I watched it, I was like, it was really giving me The Menu vibes. Have you guys seen the movie The Menu on HBO?
Yeah.
It really kind of gave me The Menu vibes. I'm like, what are we walking into here? And then the episode went on, as it were. So I thought that was really hilarious and interesting. The couple of characters that stood out in my mind during that episode is the actor that played the expediter, because you guys say that the expediter is one of the more important positions. They're the quarterback in the kitchen, calling out the plays, calling out everything, and communicating. So how did Sarah Ramos, who played the expediter Jessica in The Bear, do, in your opinion?
Oh, she did great. What's cool is that she came into the restaurant at least 2, maybe even 3 nights, and full stages stood behind Matthew, our expediter, and watched and studied. And I remember on her last night, Matt started stepping aside and letting her call plates in the kitchen. She knew everything about our system. What highlighters did what, how many stopwatches we had, how to call, what to call, the abbreviations, PESC, OVO, LACTO, all the weird little nuanced kind of conversations that happen in that little world up there. She worked very hard in studying our expo at work in real time in actual service in like the 2 or 3 days that were leading up to that week's filming. So that go ahead.
Yeah, her scene was really fantastic to watch, and I'm really glad that they didn't explain anything. Like there wasn't an exposition dump on what she was saying. I still to this day have no idea what any of those numbers meant, but it was just really fun to watch like a pro do their thing. And I was just imagining that that's what happens in your kitchen on a nightly basis, and just to be a fly on the wall and watch that happen to me would be fascinating. So it was really, really cool to watch. Now the food being served was your food, right, Chef Curtis?
That's correct. Yeah.
So were you actually doing, it was your staff doing the cooking and yourself, right?
Yeah. So when they came in to kind of shop the environment and to kind of see what the restaurant was about, was right around, mid-afternoon, where the entire kitchen was in full go of all the mise en place. All the chefs were there. They're just doing their daily production for that night's service. And they're like, this is exactly what we want. Can you guys replicate this? So, they hired all the staff to do all that. It was our normal daily mise en place. We were preparing for dinner service, even though we didn't have dinner service that night. That's what we were preparing for. So all the staff were all ever employees.
Yeah, once we knew that they were gonna use the name of the restaurant, and there would be like a logo here and there or whatever. It's like okay, so now we're invested, right? Now it's
right.
It's a fictional story. I get it, right? But it's a fictional story in our actual restaurant. So if you're reading the script and knowing that now, and all of a sudden it says, and waiter puts plate of food on table, the first thing that goes through Curtis's brain is, what food? What
does that look like? That now represents us as a brand.
And so that was made really clear right off the bat that we're like, look, that's all good. We're very excited, but we would really love it if Curtis could be the one that makes all those moves and puts all that food together. So no joke, Curtis was on set every day, early in the morning. And so, he cooked everything. You see his hands all over the place. They're all like real quick food shots, but he plated all that stuff.
So not only do you have a staff of well-qualified wait staff and cooks, now they're all SAG actors too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, even in the front of house, that's all our front of house. Those are all of our captains and back waiters. And one of our captains, Paulina, they use her. She's describing the hamachi dish. It's like one of my favorite parts. And so she actually had like speaking lines and stuff.
Oh, that's great. So she's really part of the staff.
Yeah, and people request her station all the time as a result of it. They're like, "Oh, I want her to wait on me for sure."
That's awesome. So is the note passing thing something that you guys do? Is that part of your communication style at the restaurant?
Yeah, passing notes directly behind with little pieces of paper is not something we do, mostly because I would say we don't have to do that, because we always say to each other, chins up, eyes out, chins up, eyes out. So you should never be looking anywhere but to your other teammates in the room. So if I look across the room at a napkin that just hit the floor, and then I scan eyes over to you and I scan eyes back to that napkin, if your chin's up and you're looking at me, I don't have to say or pass a note to anything. You'll automatically see that napkin. Or if a captain removes a piece from a table and then puts it directly behind their back, and a back waiter flies by them and then grabs that piece out of their hand and takes it to the dish, that is a soigné move. We like that stuff. That's what makes service fun. And that's why we say we execute service, right? Because you really want to be there in those moments.
So you're watching them pass notes on that episode, and you're like, rookies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's also one moment too where they like in real time have a cancellation and then send a car to go get the next guest or something. That's fictional. We do have a wait list for sure, and we're booked out like crazy. We're very lucky to say that. But yeah, no, calling somebody a car real time is a little far-fetched. But it's not to say that we don't do crazy stuff in the dining room every single night, because we do. And by crazy, I mean like if you mention something and we get you on that, you're going to get whatever it is. Like it's kind of like a weird secret that a lot of people don't realize. You walk into a dining room like ours, you ask for it, we're going to do everything in our physical power to get it. So if you say that what you love more than anything to drink is a diet caffeine-free Dr. Pepper, and we don't have that in-house, and there's a CVS close by, we will go get it.
Well, what about the table last night?
Oh yeah, somebody sent us a message and something in regards to having glasses with dolphins etched on the glass. So we ran out and grabbed a couple glasses that had dolphins on them and made sure they had a beverage with that item on it.
Wow, that's amazing. So running out to Pequod's for a deep dish pizza would not be out of line for you guys.
That would be totally normal. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be a normal one.
That's
We've
amazing.
had guests that have been sick, people that have been to the restaurant multiple times, cancel last minute reservations, someone wasn't feeling well. We're in a moment cooking chicken noodle soup for them and sending that home. We'll find their address and drop it off to them. And it's like moments like that just blow people away. They're just subtle moments of generosity. And it's all you have to do. Little things. We always make a joke about, when we buy a motorcycle or something, when they give you a t-shirt, you're like, that means more than just buying the motorcycle. Like that, it's a t-shirt or it's a baseball hat. All gestures that just blow you away.
Yeah. It's the tiny things. It's just the littlest of things mean everything to a client in that moment. So we are always looking and listening for ways that we can give you those little things, because they don't mean much to us anyway. And it's just the effort, right? Put forth the effort,
That's amazing. So how much did reservations uptick after that episode dropped on Hulu?
I mean, they did. They upticked. I could say, like, our restaurant, full speed ahead, is built to do about 60 covers a night. 60 people. That's not a lot. A busy restaurant, like a real restaurant, will do 500 covers, 700 covers in a night. This is why we can do all the things that we do. This is why we can listen. This is why we can send dolphin glasses to a table. This is why we can do that stuff, because we've dedicated ourselves to trying to create the most perfect service for the 60 to 70 people that are going to come into our dining room. Before the Bear, we would on average mostly see around 50, 55 people a night. Now it's just booked out even further into the future, right? So we have seen that uptick for sure. Reservations were difficult to get before, and now they're on certain nights kind of impossible to get, which is great. It's great for us. We focus on the humans in the dining room basically as much as we can. So.
Well, that's impressive. So seeing the episode was really about Richie's growth as a person and learning how fine dining works. So watching his growth through the episode, would you hire Richie as part of your wait staff?
Ooh, good one.
I would say, yeah, because, that's what you want to see as a chef or a manager, is to like watch somebody come in who has zero experience and watch them really absorb the culture of what the restaurant does and how it breeds, and, these amazing people. And, you could see at the end where he didn't want to leave that restaurant. He had started to feel part of it. And that's the culture that we try to embrace every day here, is like, we want to take these people as green as possible and then shape them the way we want them to be, to do the great things for us, and hopefully not walk away and go to other restaurants and stay here with us.
Yeah, the script was pretty cool in a sense. I mean, the little conversation the two waiters have on the outside in our dock area, that was my favorite part. I'm like, that's our dock, yeah. But he's like, basically the waiter says to Richie, this isn't a joke, man. No one's tra-la-la here. If you want a regular ass job, then go somewhere else. This isn't just a job. This is not what we do. This is a representation of who we are. And we put our integrity on the line every single night we go into service. And we do so because we have the audacity to charge all this money to have this very expensive experience, right? So the game is on. The challenge is on. This is a very expensive experience. And now I'm going to show you that it's not just worth every penny, it's worth twice as much. And how do I do that? By giving it everything, every polish of every fork, every piece of stemware, every plate, the way you carry it, the way you put it down, the way you describe it, that you get a haircut every 2 weeks so that your hair looks on point, that you're groomed appropriately, that you're not wearing tons of jewelry, and you know what I mean, that you're abiding by rules that honor the guest's experience at every corner.
So did you ever think in your wildest imaginations that you would have Olivia Colman peeling mushrooms in your kitchen?
No, I had never, not at all. Never in my wildest dreams.
They did not tell us that she was going to be a part of the project until very late in the game. They told us they were, we're currently still looking to cast the owner of the restaurant. And she came in, I think, a couple weeks. They filmed for 5 days in Ever Restaurant, Tuesday through Friday. And then they went away for a couple of weeks, and then they came back on a Sunday to film Miss Coleman in the kitchen and her scene with Richie.
Wow. So do you still have the framed picture of Jeremy Allen White and Will Poulter hanging up in the kitchen?
No, we took those down. They were props, but.
Yeah. Oh, you missed an opportunity. You can say, look, these guys cooked here.
No, should have kept
Should have kept that one. So let's talk about the future. What's the future hold for you guys in terms of Ever and you two? Or is this like, we're here? We're just gonna take it night by night and kind of see where it takes us, or what kind of projects are you guys thinking about doing in the future?
Wow. We're always looking for growth. We're always looking for interesting ways to present ourselves. We certainly want to go down a path of doing a few cookbooks, and I think Michael is working on some wine projects on the side as well. Maybe some video, maybe even a book or two with that has his interest as well. I don't know. I mean, there's other restaurant ideas that we have. Certainly, we're not going to turn around tomorrow and go, let's go, we're going to do another restaurant. But the ideas are on the table, and they're certainly talked about a lot. And that's kind of how Grace and Ever came about. Was we have this idea, and then you slowly talk about it, and then it starts to form into this real idea of let's make it happen. And I think eventually we'll get to that point again where we're like, everything, we look around us and everything's running the way it should be, and everything's in its place, and we're going to be looking to do other projects, and we'll know when that time is right, when we can step into those shoes again and take on the task of building and designing. My biggest thing is, and I think Michael's as well, is like, we've built this restaurant and we built this, what will ultimately be a small empire of restaurants, to give that to a chef who's young and hungry, who wants his own restaurant. That's what we want to do, is build a restaurant for a young cook who has ambitions of having his own restaurant, and giving him those opportunities and mentoring him in a way that we already have all the tools that you need to be successful, allow us to help you stay under this umbrella. And that's where I think that's where we're going to probably end up going next is, we have a few young cooks that are eager and are talented enough to take the reins and have their own space. So why not give it to them?
Yeah, I think, Ever was just like 2 years old or 2.5 years old when we realized that Ever sat next to 2 retail spaces that were for rent as well. And even though we weren't like, let's go build some more stuff, because Ever was just starting to coming out of the pandemic, we still had a lot of work to do at Ever. Were we ready to go design a cocktail lounge and an event space? I don't think we were ready, but we knew that we had to. We had to, because otherwise, God forbid someone else does it and then they see success. And now I'm kicking myself for the next 25 years. I shoulda, right? So we went into construction. Ever wasn't even 3 years old, and we were building the cocktail lounge and the event space. And we built that cocktail lounge with every bit of passion and drive that we built Ever. So if you think Ever's beautiful, After is a stunner. I mean, this thing is gorgeous. It's the most beautiful bar in the country. I for sure stand by that. And so after we got the bar up and running and the restaurant, we went, into a heavy operator phase where you're just trying to solidify teams, systems, get everything organized so that it's running like a well-oiled machine. And we're not there yet, and we still got a lot of work to do. And the added component of that is that Chef is busy, man. He's got travel. It's so annoying to me because I hate giving him up. I don't like him to leave, but even I don't fight it anymore. I'm like, no, he needs to do these things. He needs to be in that place and be in that place. It's bizarre, but I think it's like a weird portion of an evolution of a chef, right? They eventually get to this place where they're honestly more important outside the kitchen than they are inside the kitchen sometimes.
Speaking of outside the kitchen, let me pitch something to you now. I know you guys are into motorcycles, and Michael, you're into photography. Now, in 2017, I was reading that you, chef, met up with Keanu Reeves at the Euphoria Food Festival in Greenville, South Carolina, and got to talking. You all took a road trip through the Blue Ridge Mountains on your motorcycles. I'm thinking a food travel show with you and Michael,
right?
Doing the back roads, make it a destination. You're leaving Chicago, heading somewhere else, and then you do this like month-long road trip, and you stop at little back road restaurants or motorcycle shops, and you're talking about the evolution of a chef, right? Being more important on the outside. I think eventually every chef reaches the food travel host stage of their career,
Right.
And I'm just thinking,
Brother,
you guys are kind of already there.
If you think we didn't already pitch that to Keanu, you're crazy.
That would be fantastic. I'd watch it.
Right.
But
I mean, there is a couple TV shows with Ian McGregor. What's
Long way down
Long way
and long
up.
way around.
long way down? Yeah. Well, but it's not food focused, but it is them traveling all over, and it's a great little docu-series, movie, whatever. Is it a docu-series, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great idea to, we love being on motorcycles. We love food and wine. So it should allow us to take us wherever we want to be all over the world.
yeah, so I'm expecting EP credits if that ever comes to fruition. Just saying.
Got it. Done.
Just saying. So what should people be looking out for at Ever? I'll give you guys a chance to plug any kind of special events that are going on. Where can they find you on socials?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Ever Restaurants on Instagram and Facebook. After Lounge is on Instagram and Facebook. They're easily searchable. And the Canvas space, which we have, which is our event space, which can accommodate anybody from 80 guests to 110. 3 courses, 5 courses, casual experiences. It's basically a way for you to eat Curtis's food, but not have to go all the way into the Ever experience. The After Lounge, our cocktail bar, is open Tuesday through Saturday, just like Ever. Ever's only open for dinner, so the cocktail lounge opens at 4:00, which is 1 hour before Ever takes its first reservation, and the bar closes at midnight. Ever sees its last round of clients around 9:30, and they're usually leaving right around the same time. So it's somewhere around there. What's fun is that For Grace, the documentary, is about to be re-released, I believe, in September on Amazon Prime and iTunes, which is very exciting. And then there's going to be a second documentary that Curtis has been working on with a new director. And Curtis has a biography coming out, and we got all kinds of stuff in the works, but one day at a time. It'll come. It'll all be out.
I was about to ask, there should be a sequel to For Grace, which tells the ending of that and then the rise of Ever. So
Right.
that would be kind of interesting. So
We'll look for it sometime mid-year next year, 24.
Awesome. So guys out there, follow them on socials. Also follow Eat Your Content on socials at Eat Your Content and at Rich Herrera on Instagram and TikTok. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you both. Wish you all the best and luck in the future.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much. Great talking with you as well.